What's up, everybody? It's Pikel with League of Items, and that was League of Legends. That was the disclaimer on the previous screen. If you're angry about something, read that disclaimer. So last night we had OMG up against Thunder Talk Gaming, and we had FPX up against RNG. I feel kind of silly about last night because I really don't think I gave FPX enough credit. I did think that they were a live dog. So I did make some lineups with FPX, but it ended up being that in order to make the optimal, the lineup that was going to win everything last night, you needed to have more players from RNG than FPX, but have the FPX team slot. So most people are just never going to get to that kind of lineup construction on DraftKings. For my picks, I went with OMG and RNG, so I won one, lost one. That's fine. I put those picks up in Discord. If you want access to Discord, check out my Patreon. It's like $10 a month. And it's more about like incentivizing me to make the videos. Most of the people that are in Discord for an extended period of time are just generally pretty active and like being able to talk to me and stuff like that. And I like being able to talk to them. So it's a nice little community we've got there. But let's just go through the games real quick, and then we'll look at the games for tomorrow. So in the first game, in the first matchup, we had OMG against Thunder Talk Gaming. OMG did look a decent amount better than Thunder Talk Gaming. Sean G played well, but again, this is against Thunder Talk, so it doesn't really matter. Old Crazy Eyes had a pretty good performance on Jarvan. Then we had Cream on Syndra, which is fine. That's not like necessarily the kind of champion we really want to see Cream on, but it's fine. And then we have Jinx and Nautilus, so that's all good. I haven't been playing much League of Legends recently, so this is important for me to be able to look through all this stuff because the meta is going to change, and that's where I feel like I carve out a little bit of an edge, is like how do these teams match up, what champions could teams use to create an advantage for themselves. So Vex, I've never seen Vex in a professional game. I didn't watch this game last night. I'll have to check it out. Then in game 2, we had Rumble against Gangplank. On the cast, I think they were saying something like Shanji was laughing during Champion Select because he got Rumble. So maybe he's like a really good Rumble player. Wouldn't be that surprising. He just does a ridiculous amount of damage. Then we have Xin Zhao against Lee Sin's fine. Corki, I think that Corki might be a very important champion in this meta. It just seems kind of broken, especially when it's uncontested in lane by something like Twisted Fate. Then we had another Jinx game with Rakan. Ziggs, I still think it's kind of a trap. And then we have Leona. So OMG just kind of dominated Thunder Talk Gaming, and it'll be interesting to see who OMG plays next because I think there might be a little bit too high of public sentiment on them, but it depends on the matchup. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Then in the FPX RNG matchup, Graves against Jace is fine. Kind of just a skill matchup, I'm pretty sure. It might be Graves favored, but I think it's just a skill matchup. Xin Zhao against Viego. So Viego's still hanging around in the jungle. That's an interesting thing to see. There will be a couple teams in Korea that are happy about that. Then we have another Corki game. So Corki is 2-0 so far. Victor, who's a champion I just don't like in general. He gets outranged a decent amount. And then we have Jinx up against Jin. So Jin, another champion I don't like very much. In game 2, we have Xiaolahu on Gwen against Jax. So Xiaolahu isn't afraid to pick carry champions, which is good to see, which is kind of what we assumed based off of what we saw last year. Another Viego matchup, this time against Xin Zhao again. Victor against Zoe. They ended up banning the Corki that game. That's pretty funny. Then we have Kate Lux against Jin Karma. So, then game 3, and so like in this matchup last night, OMG had the higher kill score, and they also got the game not played bonus. So those were the players that you needed as your primary stack. In the second series, I actually saw some of game 3. And game 3, the takeaway I had from the RNG FPX matchup in regards to RNG is that RNG has talented players, but they can still mess up macro stuff pretty easily. which a lot of teams can do that. But I hate watching professional League of Legends when a team just gives away like 3 dragons, and then the fourth one is like impossible to contest, and then you're playing against Infernal Soul. It's like, what? Why even let that happen? It's just crazy. Like, I'd rather fight for the third dragon and be losing by like 4,000 or 5,000 gold by the Infernal. So it's like, well, we didn't have a chance anyways. Instead of it being, oh, we're within 1,000 or 2,000 gold. Let's just play the Infernal fight the right way, and then we'll win and we'll get lucky. It's a weird kind of way to decide a game. But that's that. The other thing is that some people were saying that FPX looked pretty good at Demacia Cup. In general, that's the kind of thing that I will actively bet against, because I don't put much stock into that sort of competition in the LPL. And the reason is because there are a lot of teams that didn't have full rosters. FPX did play against, I think, LNG, but so they had like some legit matchups, I think, because there were a lot of there were some teams fielding their full rosters. But that's basically it for last night. I thought I tied for third, but I actually tied for 13th. There was another stat correction. So the only difference between my lineup and the lineup that came in first place, I had Aki as my captain. They had Cream, so I had a double jungle lineup. They had a double mid lineup. We both had Shanji. I had Wei. He had Aki. I had Cream. He had Xiaohu. Then we both had Gala. I had Ming instead of Cold, and then I had OMG instead of FPX. So the difference was like 26 points, but 25 or 26 points between Wei and Aki, and then I lost another point from Cold and FPX. But that's the kind of lineup that you make to give yourself a shot. I would have chopped it a bunch, but that's fine. So that's it for yesterday. Let's take a look at the games for tonight. So JDG played in Demacia Cup. They didn't play well at the Demacia Cup. Hope is probably going to be their starting AD carry in the future, but LPC is playing in this match tomorrow. So for JDG, we have 369, Kanavi, Yagao, LPC, and Missing. In the Demacia Cup, they did not have Kanavi. Kanavi is their most important player, so I think that there will be people out there saying that JDG looked bad in Demacia Cup, but they didn't have their best player. So I don't know how much weight you can really put into that. And the line is pretty insane. So EDG is a minus 814 favorite. JDG is at 547. I mean, that seems like you kind of have to make that bet. And if you're not comfortable betting on JDG to win the match, try to find a line where they're like, just win one game and see if you can find that out there. Regardless of what the odds are, I think they're probably going to be inflated anyways. So that's definitely something to watch out for. And then on EDG, we have Flandre, Jai, Scout, Viper, and Mako. And I actually found footage of Viper leading EDG onto the stage during the Demacia Cup. Gotta love dodgeball. So I think that EDG obviously should be the favorites in this situation. I think that the line is kind of ridiculous. I think if you go lane by lane, 369 against Flandre, if you told me in 2020 that 369 was playing against Flandre and I had to go do a poll of people playing DraftKings and betting on League of Legends, who's better, 369 or Flandre, 80 to 90% of people would have said that 369 is better than Flandre because 369 was on top esports. I think in reality they were very similar to one another. They're both good players. So there's not a big deal. There's not a big difference between the two. Kanavi against Jai. In my opinion, Kanavi is just a better player than Jai. Because of the difference in talent on these two teams in the mid lane and bot lane, there's a chance that Jai will win this match and will look like the better player than Kanavi. But it's tough it's tough for some people to differentiate a player's result from their talent. Because we've seen EDG be reluctant to give Jai Jai the starting position like on his own. Like they had a platoon last year with him and Junjia, so it's difficult for me to go from somebody sharing time to now he's the starter and he's great. Like he's not great. He's definitely league average or better, but he's not Kanavi. So we have to think about that for tomorrow. Then in the mid lane, we have Yagao against Scout, and this is another one. If you told me in 2020, when people just started watching League of Legends for the betting scene, for the betting purposes, a lot of people would have said that Yagao is a better player than Scout, and it's because they had a limited sample size of which games they had exposure to. Scout has been around forever. Scout's a very good player, and I think anybody who was more familiar with League of Legends was probably saying in those videos, like, yes, Yagao is playing very well right now, but Scout is just like a very good player. Like he's one of the best. He was one of the best mid laners in the world, and maybe is still one of the best mid laners in the world. He's definitely in the upper echelon. It's just like, is he super elite? Like I'm not so sure. And then in the bot lane, I think Viper and Mako are much better than LPC and Missing. So this is really the big question mark: is can JDG use the top half of the map to create and maintain an advantage? And I think the answer is certainly yes. They will need to draft around it the right way. So hopefully EDG plays for some kind of hyper carry in the bot lane, and then JDG can punish it with a utility AD carry and 3 champions on the top side with Engage and Agency to go into the bot lane and cause problems for Viper and Mako, build up a couple of Dragon lead, snowball that into a win. Like it's very possible for a team like JDG to do that because they're legitimate professional players. 369, Kanavi, Yagao, Missing are all legit players, have looked very good at different points in their careers. LPC I'm not as sure about, but again, he's not intended to be the long-term solution at 80 carry, I don't think. So yes, I think that JDG is a live dog. I understand why EDG is listed as the favorite, because they should be listed as the favorite. They're the world champions. But the line is like really far out of line. And the important thing to remember when watching this match tomorrow is that even if EDG wins in a 2-0 and completely blows out JDG, that doesn't necessarily justify the money line. The money line is saying that EDG wins this 90% of the time. There's no way that it's 90% of the time. And that's where you're trying to identify value to make that bet, because as long as they convert at like a 20% clip, you have a 10% edge over the sportsbook. Make those types of bets long term, and you're going to make 10% on your money. That's how we should be approaching betting. And then we have, actually, I guess, yeah, okay. So then we have LGD and Anyone's Legends. Let's go to Anyone's Legends. Anyone's Legends is listed as the favorite, minus 170, LGD plus 140. So we have Fearness against ZDZ. I think we saw Fearness a few times last year, not necessarily anything special. I wasn't sure that they were going to play over Garvey, and I do think that Garvey's actually pretty good, at least is a serviceable top laner, and we know that for sure. But ZDZ, I don't know anything about ZDZ. I don't think he was a starter in the LPL last year. Then in the jungle, we have Shadow against Xiaohao. Again, I don't know much about Xiaohao. Let's see. Let's see where they came from. Was on Rogue Warriors. Did they name change? No. Mostly playing in the LDL. Relatively young. Xiaohao, a little bit younger, was on Rogue Warriors. Did they play last night? No, I think Ice Coke played more. And they did play in the Demacia Cup. Anyone's Legends. They went 3-1. So I'm guessing they lost to Ultra Prime. They beat a couple of teams that are just not like legit teams. So tough to put any stock into that. Then we have Yedge or YEG against Forge. So Forge is coming over. Was formerly on Vici Gaming and was splitting time with Zika before Zika kind of burst onto the scene. I don't think that Forge is horrible, but I think there's a reason that no team that he's been on has been super good. I don't know anything about Yedge, so not much to say there. Then in the bot lane we have Eric and Jinjiao against Betty and Chow Chow. So I've got a Betty clip for you.
Gentlemen, from this day forward, you will all refer to me by the name Betty.
But isn't Betty a woman's name?
Gentlemen,
That's from Kung Pao Enter the Fist. I don't know if any of you will understand what that actually is, but that's like a movie from I guess the early 2000s. Probably potentially racist, probably potentially considered racist at this point, or at least racially insensitive. I did not intend for it to be racially insensitive, but if anybody out there is upset about it, the early 2000s was a different time. They had a couple of those dubbed over movies, they were sort of funny. So I don't think there's a big difference. I think by the end of last year, Eric was on OMG, and I think Eric and Cold looked okay a decent amount of the time. Betty on RNG. It was interesting when Betty was theoretically the replacement for Uzi on RNG, but then Gala came in and Gala played better than Betty does. Played better than Betty did. And then Chow Chow coming over from Top Esports. He struggled to get a ton of playing time because it would go back and forth between like Chow Chow, Zhuo, and there was another support that was also getting time there. But that's never a good sign for me. When you're fighting for playing time, it means that the team doesn't necessarily believe in you. At least that's how I look at it. That could be wrong. So I think from the name recognition standpoint, some people are going to see Forge, Betty, and Chow Chow and just think like, yeah, those guys are better. I like Shadow. I think that he was kind of treated unfairly on Mad Lions. Eric has had some good performances and has shown that he can be competitive on the right team. Fearness playing over Garvey makes me think that he can play at least to Garvey's level. And I think we actually did see Fearness a few times last year. Is Fearness like 17? Am I thinking of the right person? Let's see. LGD, in my mind, has done a good job scouting talent in general. They had Peanut, which was always very good. Why is Jinjiao listed as? He is not a bot laner. Eric's 2001, 2001, 2001, 2002. Yeah, so this is the kind of spot where I think that I might just be on LGD. I am a fan of Shadow. I think people know that by this point. So I'm definitely willing to play LGD in this spot. I think some people might look back to the Demacia Cup performances out of anyone's Legends and think that they are better than they really are. And like I said, I can't state this directly enough. I know next to nothing about ZDZ and Xiaohao. So they're gigantic question marks. The reason why I'm willing to take a risk on LGD in this situation is because I have seen Fearness. I know I like Shadow. I know I think that Eric is okay at worst. Same thing for Betty. Same thing for Forge. Same thing for Chow Chow. So if I like the upside of Fearness and I like the upside of Shadow, and then the other team has a bunch of question marks and players that I'm not super high on, I feel almost obligated to be on the LGD side. I don't know what the kill scores are going to look like for these types of teams. My instinct would be that you probably want to get EDG as your you probably want to get EDG as your primary stack because they have a better chance to 2-0. But that's also a good justification for using their top lane support and team slot. So if you want to use them as a secondary stack, I understand why you would do that as well. I mean, that's probably how I'm going. I need to kind of mull it over a little bit more. But if we look at the different scoring options or salary options on DraftKings, Viper and Scout are the two most expensive players. Then we have Betty and Harder. What? So Harder's not even. What is happening? DraftKings doesn't have the right players, so I don't know what to do about that. Okay, that should be interesting. But this is generally how DraftKings does their pricing. Is they list like the biggest favorite as the highest priced players, and so on and so forth. 5,400. So they're basically saying that EDG has a pretty good chance of 2-0ing. That's why the support and team slot are inflated a little extra. Because there's a high correlation between that sort of result and DraftKings scoring. But it shouldn't really matter. Like if I'm using LGD, then I'm gonna have enough salary to do whatever I want. And that's basically it. I think that you could make an argument to play JDG. So maybe I'll run out 1 or 2 JDG LGD lineups. But I think a majority of them will probably end up having EDG. And then once I start messing around with salaries, I get ideas about, what other potential unique lineups can I make with EDG plus anyone's legends? Like what salaries barely fit together that people won't necessarily be on. So that's it for tonight. We're back. League of Legends is back. I think Korea starts on the 12th. So tomorrow we'll have a video with all the LPL games and LCK games. And then I think that Europe starts soon. Europe and North America, the LCS and the LEC both start very soon as well. So we will have a lot of games to go through this week. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.